Meet PitchDB, the ultimate platform for speakers looking to make their mark on podcasts, conferences, and media outlets. PitchDB provides access to over 3 million platforms, ensuring you find the perfect avenue for your message. With AI integrations, your bios and pitches are tailored uniquely to each opportunity, giving you the edge you need. Join now at pitchdb.com.
Welcome to Your Brand Amplified, the podcast where we interview marketers, publicists, and brands to learn their stories, what makes them tick, and tips and tricks that make a difference. Today we have Rai Cornell from Cornell Content Marketing on the show. Rai, first of all, I want to talk about your degrees. You majored in psychology and criminology. You're an expert copywriter and content marketing expert for many years. So how did you move from one to the other? I will flag, I love on your LinkedIn how you say that bad copy is a crime. So you kind of wove in a little bit of your background there.
Yes. Yeah. So actually, I was kind of on this dual career path at the same time, which I didn't even realize until, years later. But I initially started freelancing to pay my way through college. And from a very young age, I kind of had that hustler mentality. I was always doing side jobs. I was always trying to figure out, how do I make money? How do I do this? How do I do that on my own? And when I went into college, I started out as a web developer because I had taught myself HTML, CSS, PHP back when I was in fourth grade, and I had switched schools and had no friends for a summer. So I leaned into that. And I've always kind of everybody has a thing that they're naturally good at. Some people are great musicians or artists or wordsmiths. Words was always my thing. And so I leaned into that, and I used freelance writing to pay my way through college. And I got a bachelor's degree in psychology, a master's in professional clinical counseling, and a master's in criminology. And all the while I was using my writing experience to pay my way. Well, after working in community counseling center, a drug rehab facility, and a mental hospital, I completely burned out on the mental health world. I was so grateful that I had this side business that I didn't have to just, figure out what I wanted to do after leaving mental health. I just kind of went, well, this is the side that really makes me happy. So I'm just going to do that more. And I kind of got a jump start into what ended up becoming my full service content marketing agency.
So interesting. And I think I said this in my last episode too, that so many of my guests have this one thing that they're pursuing in school, or they have a career, but they are doing this other thing that they really love. And then they're eventually able, oh, wait, of course, that's the thing I'm supposed to be doing.
Yeah. And, the crime background. So both of my parents were cops. And so I grew up with the police department being my babysitter, basically. They would kind of leave me at the station, and I would hang out with the other detectives in the break room and things while my dad was finishing his shift before he could take me home. And, that's the culture that I grew up in, was cops and detectives. And, I love criminology and I really enjoy that side of things. And I really enjoy the psychology. But after doing all of that work to get the degrees, and, I was this close to getting my license and, going into being a counselor in the prison system, I was a little bitter about all this wasted time and my student loan debt and all of that. But after talking with people who would end up being my marketing clients, I realized actually my psych background and my criminology background is a bonus. They would ask me about my background, and I always felt a little embarrassed to say that I didn't have a degree in marketing or in business, and my degrees were in psychology, but they actually leaned into that as opposed to holding it against me. So building my business on that platform was actually kind of healing in a way. And I think that's something that a lot of people who pivot or change career trajectories can really relate to, because you feel this oh my God, I should have been doing this other thing all along. But then you realize it was all for a reason. And now I'm using that background and that history to create a brand and messaging and a methodology to my marketing that is completely different from anything else you'll find.
And that is so important, because I know in the world of marketing, a lot of times now, and it's not just now, but people who really understand it and go deep do think about, we need to have somebody on our team who has a neuroscience background, who really understands how our messages are going to attract or repel people. And so I imagine that you're able to do that in your wordsmithing and creating concepts for people.
Yeah, very much. It's interesting because I started on the verbal side with words, and a big part of my focus was how do these words make people feel? Connotation is a big part of what I do. But then as we grew and evolved into not just being words, but also providing design and web dev and all these multimedia assets for marketing, we really started to expand that concept thinking to the visual side. And it's also, how do these visuals make people feel? What do they remind people of? Is it a positive past association or a negative one? Do we need to correct any beliefs? So we go through this whole internal analysis journey of figuring out what we need people to think, feel, and believe in order to make the decisions or actions that we want them to in marketing. And one thing that kind of is like a little bit of a pet peeve of mine about the marketing and advertising industry is often that's done from a manipulative place.
Right.
People are trying to get you to click. They want you to buy. They use FOMO tactics and scarcity tactics, and they just make people feel icky. And I'm using this to make people feel good. I want to bring companies that have a solution to people who have a problem and really create those relationships and those bridges from an emotional and internal level for the good, not for just to make a few extra dollars or just to, hit revenue goals. That's not the point. And that's a very short-sighted perspective that unfortunately the marketing and advertising industry runs on, but trying to fix that.
Yeah. I love that you're trying to fix that. So I imagine then there are specific types of clients you prefer to work with over others because you are coming from this very intentional space.
Yeah. So I like to work with companies that are either very innovative and they're really trying to improve the way things have been done before, or they have some kind of greater good or greater purpose to their companies. It's not just a t-shirt factory selling t-shirts for the sake of selling t-shirts. It's companies that have some kind of give back, or, I've worked with brands like Pretty Litter. They're trying to help cat parents understand what the internal chemistry of their cat really is, because cats hide symptoms, and then oftentimes you can't do anything to save your cat or provide treatment until it's too late. And so, helping cat parents have an easier time caring for their fur babies. Or Real Paper is another company that I've worked with where they did a lot of work to give back to people who are in third world countries or disadvantaged communities that don't have plumbing or running water, and bringing hygiene and privacy to those communities, because it's a toilet paper company. Things like that, where it's more than just making a sale. Yeah. It's making the sale to help the person who's actually receiving the product, but then also help others.
Yeah. And I love those two examples you gave, because most people wouldn't think kitty litter company and a toilet paper company would be so intentional. So the fact that you're able to weave this complex narrative and help us understand, I'm not even seeing the advertising, I'm not even seeing the copy that you've written, but you sharing right now helps me see, oh, okay, my sister and my brother both have they have cats. Maybe I need to look into this product for them. And I love things that give back and are intentional and give back to other countries. So you've already got me without me even seeing all of the work.
Yeah. And I'm glad to hear that. That's a huge compliment. And, I do a lot of work, but I think historically, I've done a lot of work with B2C companies, but now I work mostly with B2B companies. And a lot of people look at B2B companies and they go, it's all about closing and growing and acquisitions and mergers and all of that. But one of the companies that I work with right now, they're this IT and cybersecurity company. And I love the way that they look at the world, because it's not just about the service desk. It's not just about the cybersecurity tools. It's about who are the people on the other end of those tools. There are teachers, there are nursing students, there are hospitals, there are utility providers trying to literally keeping the lights on for families. And this company has really opened my eyes to the technology world and how much humanity is actually in something that quite often is perceived as being very devoid of humanity and very clinical or sterile.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of times companies niche down, but it sounds like you have added more services. So I'd love for you to talk about that, because I've done that myself, gone from just being PR to well, they really need branding, they need a website, they need this, other things that I brought out team members on for. Sometimes it's worked really well, sometimes it hasn't. So I'd love to hear what decision points, what point did you make those decisions, and how does that work in your organization?
Yeah, that's a great question. And we have expanded our service offerings, but then we've also contracted. So, I think with any business, it has lifespan. It's like it's a child, and then it's an adolescent, and then it's a young adult, and then it's a mature adult, and I feel like we're finally getting to that mature adult stage where we know what we're really good at, but we've also expanded beyond what we initially started with. So initially it was content and copy, and I was the sole writer. I started with a small team, VAs, and then grew to offering more like design-oriented services to complement the content, and then going beyond that and beyond that and beyond that. And the reason that we kept expanding is because when I was just a copywriter or just a content creator, I was often asked to create things, and I wasn't given a why. I wasn't given a reason. And so I'm asking my clients, well, okay, what do you want out of this blog article? Do you want them to book a call? Do you want them to buy a product? Do you want them to just read it and spend more time on the page? Because depending on your answer, I'm going to write it very differently to suit your goals. They didn't have an answer for me. So then I would say, okay, well, let's press pause on the content creation. Let's figure out the strategy first, the why behind what we're doing, and how the content is actually going to help your business goals.
Exactly.
And then I'll create whatever that ends up looking like. Mm-hmm. And so adding that strategy layer was the first thing. And from there, that really gave us a lot of kind of like expanded insight into what businesses really need in order for the content and the copy to be successful. Mm-hmm. They need powerful visuals that aren't just stock photography. They need some kind of like opt-in mechanism, which required email marketing and that kind of system build out. And as we started to add these things, sometimes our clients were like, okay, can you also do social media? Can you also do this other thing? Can you also do paid backlinks? And at first there were some clients where we said, yes, we'll do all the things. And it was exciting. But then we realized, one, we're not that great at some of these things. And two, some of these things I just don't even believe in. Like advertising, for example. Mm-hmm. I think it's so much more powerful when a company can build their traffic, build their brand on the organic content, right? As opposed to just putting ads at the top of the Google search engine results page, And so we've decided to be a purely organic agency where we have partners that we refer our clients to if they are dead set on doing advertising and paid ads on Google or Facebook or Instagram or LinkedIn or Bing. But we will do everything we possibly can to get the organic results first. And we have, for example, Pretty Litter, I wrote content for them in 2018 for $350 for a single blog post that they're still making money on today. That's still live on their website and driving traffic to their product purchasing pages. Whereas with advertising, you have to continuously pour money into mechanisms in 4 figures and up per month in order to see results. To me, that's not efficient, especially for businesses where their dollars could be going to a greater good elsewhere and really shouldn't be going into advertising.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. What are some things that you see people make mistakes on when they're trying to write their own copy? I know one conversation I've had recently is using AI to write everything and it's not original thoughts rather than using it as a tool or mechanism. But I know there are other things that I'm sure you've seen in your career.
Yeah. So the AI one, that's a conversation that I've had a lot. A lot of people think that writers and creatives are just automatically anti-AI because AI is going to take all our jobs. I guarantee you there will always be a need for humans in creative. We use a few AI tools, particularly in things like video generation and things like that. But I think AI is also a great place to start for ideation. You have to understand how AI works, which is that, and something we probably already covered this in previous episodes, but it's an amalgamation of everything that already exists. So when you're asking AI for something, it's going to spit back at you things that already exist. And so it's not necessarily going to be original. Yes, you might encounter some ideas that you haven't thought of before, but others have. And so you just have to be careful with how you use AI and make sure that it's aligning to your goals and purpose.
Yeah.
Your original question was, what are some mistakes that I've seen people make, especially with regard to copywriting? And I would say thinking about the copy from your own perspective is only half the picture. So yes, as copywriters, as business owners, we want to say what we think is the most important and the most valuable, but we have to think about the experience of the person on the other end. What problems are they experiencing? What is actually most important to them? Is price most important to them, or is relief from some kind of pain most important to them? Is it frustration? Is it time saving? You have to think about that as opposed to just, well, this is how we're different. This is why we're better than the competition. You can't just have that singular view. When you have your things that you want to say very clear in your mind, and then you also think about the person on the receiving end and what's most important to them, you can kind of picture it as a Venn diagram, and where those things overlap, that's what you need to hone in on with copy at the top of the page, or in advertising, or in short form content or posts. When you're trying to capture someone's attention and you have 4 seconds to do it, you have to focus on that overlap of where you shine and what's most important to the people that you're trying to help.
Absolutely. I want to talk about Chiron, which you said is part of your agency, because I think this also has to do with the way you've built your agency very intentionally, right? And it can be hard for people to figure out, at what point do you hire? Do you hire contractors? Do you hire full-time employees? How virtual assistants? This world, there's so many options. And so I'd love to hear what your perspective is, how you built up your company, your agency, and then what part does Chiron play in that?
Thank you for asking. It's very near and dear to my heart. Being someone who's been freelancing and doing the side hustle thing since I was 14 years old, I have an inclination toward freelancing life as opposed to employment life. I really understand the people who are brave enough to go out and try and do it on their own and go, I'm not going to clock in at 8 and clock out at 5. I'm not going to take my lunch when you tell me to. I'm not going to, conform to those kind of more corporate structures. I have a lot of respect for the people who are like, I know I have a talent. I know I have something that I can offer. And I would like the flexibility to have autonomy over my time and be able to serve clients, multiple clients, in a way that works for me and works for them. It's kind of this symbiotic thing where not all employment is unhealthy, but the horror stories that I hear about the career paths people take in life, they all are often associated with being taken advantage of by a boss, or not feeling appreciated, or wanting that raise, but being too afraid to ask someone for it. And when you're a freelancer, when you're self-employed, there's no one you have to ask. You just do it. And I have this very strong independent streak in me, and that's kind of why I lean in that direction. So I say all that because my entire team, with the exception of me and my husband, is made up of independent contractors. And pretty much everybody on my team works for Cornell and other clients. So they are true freelancers who have multiple clients. They're juggling multiple things. They have this passion for life that depends on that flexibility. And I want to nurture that. I want to support that. And so what ended up happening was, since I've been freelancing professionally for 17 years now, some of my team members who are only 2 or 3 years in, they would come to me saying, hey, can I ask you something? I need to price something out for another client, not Cornell, but another client. Can I ask for your opinion on that? Absolutely. I would love when they would come and ask me that. And so I started getting all of these questions, and I was like, this is something where I'm finding myself telling people the same advice, or teaching the same mentality shifts, why don't I turn that into a completely separate program?
Yeah.
So Chiron Consulting is the mentoring program that started within Cornell. And we do have some people on that side who are external from Cornell. I have some mentees who are not on the Cornell team, but that's really where it originated, was from that very tight-knit freelancer community.
I think that's one of the things that we forget is that even if we're freelancers, even if we're living in a virtual world, we still need those community connections.
Yes.
We need people to bounce ideas off of, and whether they're doing exactly what we're doing or they're part of our team or just a colleague who does something slightly different, knowing that there are people that you can go to and trust and just speak to and learn from is so vital to our growth.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's important that you said that, because a lot of us freelancers tend to be introverts and we think like, well, I can do everything on my own and in a silo and in my PJs. But really, you do need people outside of yourself from time to time, even if it's just to validate what you're feeling, what you're going through. And quite often it's to get advice and input and other ideas of how to do things better and to overcome challenges with clients and things like that. So yeah, it's really about supporting the lifestyle that people have chosen for themselves.
Now, you said you were primarily focused on B2C, and now you've kind of morphed into B2B. Was that transition natural? Was there a specific reason behind it? And was it difficult to make that transition?
So it definitely was natural, and I don't think it was really difficult. It was one of those things where I just kind of kept getting pulled in that direction, because I want to say this without this going across the wrong way. For me, B2C was easy. And maybe because I am a C, I'm a consumer. I am the person who's going to buy the pretty litter and buy the real paper. So maybe that's why it felt easy. But I also felt like there are a lot of agencies out there who can serve B2C very, very well, and who do things well that I don't do. For example, I don't do social media very well. I really hate social media. It's not one of my strong suits. I don't enjoy it. I just don't really like to go near it at all. And in B2C, you really have to have social media as part of your strategy. So it was also a little bit of a personality clash on that side. But the content for B2C was, I found, really easy, and I like a challenge. And so I started working with a couple companies who had this hybrid audience. They would be B2B oriented in some of the solutions they offered, but then some things that they sold were very B2C. And they really struggled to figure out, how do we craft our messaging to speak to both, but not sound so generic that it sounds like we're speaking to nobody.
Yeah.
And that wordsmithing of the messaging, I really, really enjoyed. And that was kind of the stepping stone into B2B. And from there, I just realized that a lot of the things that I enjoy doing the most, like thought leadership, content, resources focused on innovation, new systems, new tools, new ways of doing things, new ways of thinking, really leaned more towards business to business conversations. And it may also be because I love building businesses. It's so much fun for me when I get to go create a new system in Coda, or, create a new workflow. Like, I'm a total nerd when it comes to that kind of systems engineering stuff. And that also leans more to B2B. So it was more like, that's where the challenges were. And it's also where I felt like I could really shine compared to my competitors, who would likely do B2C stuff equally or better than I was doing it.
There's a couple of things that you are an expert at that I know are, maybe for me, a little difficult to understand, because I feel like we get so many different messages about what methods are going to be appropriate. And these are the worlds of email marketing, where sometimes you have people who say you need to send an email every day with your offer. And honestly, it drives people have told me that, and it drives me crazy. And I'm like, well, that's not really my personality. I'm not going to do that. And if somebody does that to me, I'm probably going to delete their emails. But for some people, it works, right? And then the other side is landing pages. And you have to have a compelling offer, and you have to have it be really long, and you have to. And again, as a consumer and a marketer, I'm like, I don't want to scroll all the way to the bottom to find the
just
offer.
To find the price.
Just tell me what it is. Yeah. So I'd love to hear your perspective on both of those and things that you think people can do better that have worked for your clients.
Yes. So both of those tactics that you described, the very frequent emailing or the very long landing page, those are based on psychological tactics that I feel like are icky. That's
Yeah.
what I call icky marketing, whereas what we try to do is feel good marketing. And so on the email side of things, it's very aggressive. And yes, that can work when you capture people at the right time with usually that kind of like high frequency emailing is coupled with don't miss out on this deal.
Oh,
This is a flash sale. Like, hurry up and get yours before they're all sold out. And that's scarcity mentality. And it makes people feel less than. It makes them feel like if I don't do this, if I don't spend my money on this, if I don't make this choice, I'm stupid or I'm going to be missing out on things that my peers have access to.
right.
And I don't like that. On the email side of things, we do, and it always depends, the cadence actually depends on the client and who they're trying to connect with. But we do, marketing to build relationships. I have one client who we literally send one email per month, and it's so amazingly effective. Our email rates are super high, or I'm sorry, our email open rates are super high. Our click-through rates are super high, and it fits in with the sales cycle that works for their B2B business. And it's because we're not bombarding people. We are offering value. Every single email is here. We created this resource. We think it could help you. Or we've been getting this question a lot from our B2B partners. We think the answer could help you. So we put together this article. Here you go. It's all about building trust and building that bridge between problem and solution so that people can get what they need. And it's mutual. Now, on the landing page side of things, the tactic that they're using there with those really long pages is the sunk cost fallacy. They use that tactic because they think, okay, people are going to spend more time on this page. And by the time they get to the bottom of the page, they're going to feel like they've invested so much time, so much energy into this that they might as well just do it. And so you can actually ask for a higher price with those really long landing pages because people start to feel like, oh, I've already invested time and energy into this. I might as well. And that's not logical, but it's very emotional and it's very manipulative. When I create landing pages, they're short, they're to the point. It's this solution is for this type of person or company. This is what you're going to get. This is the value and the benefit that we think it can provide to you. This is the impact that we think it's going to have on your business. Here's the guarantee. If there's any, it doesn't have to be one. Here's the price. That's it. We give people what they want because we're showing that we respect your time and we respect your intelligence. If you actually need the solution that we're going to offer, you're going to act on this. And if you don't, then we don't want to waste any more of your time. And we hope that in the future, if you do find yourself needing this, you'll remember us, you'll have a positive association with us, and you'll come back because we made you feel good, not bad.
We're so aligned. I'm so happy to hear this and the intentionality that you put into the marketing and just this craft, right? We need more of that in the world. So thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Because I love that you said, I don't like to get bombarded with all those emails, so I don't want to do that to my audience. That's exactly, it's the golden rule that we've been taught since childhood, right? Like treat people the way you want to be treated. Well, and you just do that in your marketing, you're building such a loyal and expansive community that will always come back to you and view you highly, as opposed to viewing you as a company that is just trying to get one up on you, just trying to get your dollars, or the other pet peeve I have is when somebody buys something and then that company puts on the conversion page, congratulations, like you did this for yourself. No.
I just spent my hard-earned money.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Exactly. That drives me nuts. Companies should be thanking you for trusting them and now promising that they're going to deliver on what they initially promised.
Absolutely. Oof. Are there any other pet peeves that you have when you think about icky marketing that you stay away from? So that if somebody's listening to this episode and they're in the B2B space, they're looking for somebody new to work with, they can hear this, right? And resonate with, oh yeah, I don't like that either. Let me talk to her. Let me talk to Ryan.
And there's a lot of just predatory tactics out there, and unfortunately, a lot of them are aimed at the B2C arena where businesses are preying on consumers, either because the consumers don't have the experience with that particular strategy, or they, do fall prey to the emotional manipulation tactics. And one that drove me nuts, this happened especially during COVID, like 2020, 2021. I saw this a lot, was companies saying, oh, our poor little factory, it didn't make it through COVID. We're having these clearance sales, please help us at least make the most of our inventory. Well, 6 months later, I see the exact same message from the exact same company. 3 months later, I see I'm like, really? How many of your little factories didn't make it?
Exactly.
It's a lie.
Yeah.
And anything where you have to tell anything other than the truth, it's not okay. That should not fly through your radar. So whether that's, oh, this deal is only offered for the next 24 hours. If that's not true, don't say it. Or another one is, this is an offer exclusively for you. No, it's not. You're sending this 3,000 people on your list. Don't tell me it's exclusively for me if it's really not.
Right.
So it's just those kinds of things that companies say to make people feel special. But if you go even one little layer deeper, it's all hollow and it's meaningless. And I think that just weakens the trust that a company can earn from its consumers and from the public at large. You want everything that you put out there to be trust building, not trust sabotaging.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, this has been a really fun and enlightening conversation. I love your expertise, everything that you're pouring into your pivot, into your company, how intentional you are with your clients and with your team members. This is the kind of conversation that makes me excited to be in this space and to have conversations with people and talk about the world of work and how to make it better for everybody. So
yeah, thank you so much. I can probably tell I get all riled up and I get all excited talking about this stuff because it really matters. It affects people's lives. And so I know marketing is not the most exciting word and advertising is kind of a bad word. And I think if we can pivot the way it's done, it can actually become a good thing.
Yeah. And I think you have a freebie for our audience. Is that right?
Yes. So if you're looking to do something like SEO, which is to help you get in front of the people who are typing their problems into Google and looking for the solution that you have to offer, SEO is critical. And I know SEO is one of those things that can often feel overwhelming or overly complicated. And so a lot of people just don't even go near it. So I put together an SEO checklist and you can get that on our website at cornellcontentmarketing.com/checklist, I believe it is. So we're going to put the link in the show notes just in case I'm wrong.
I will. Oh yeah, it'll be in the show notes.
Perfect. So you can get that and it guides you through everything you need to do. And I think it's like 14 steps. It's not 114. It's 14. And that's how you can SEO your blog content. My team of writers uses it for every single blog they create to make sure that we're hitting all of those notes. So everything that you need is in there to do it for yourself.
Oh, fantastic. And Ray, I always have one last question. Do you have a favorite quote, mantra, words of wisdom that help you get through every day?
Yeah, I heard it when I was a little girl. I must have been like 9 or 10 years old, and it stuck with me my whole life. And the quote is, "A man may fall 1,000 times, but he's not a failure until he says somebody pushed him."
Ooh.
And to me, that really drives home the fact that when you are self-employed, when you're a freelancer, when you're a business owner, when you're just trying to figure something out, failure is not, I did the thing and it didn't work. To me, that's still a success because you learned what not to do. You learned so much from that experience. You're only a failure if you don't take ownership of the things that you've done and the things that you've tried, the things that you've accomplished or not. And you give that power over your life to someone else. We are all in the driver's seat. And as long as you have that positive mentality of, okay, I'm going to give this a shot and I'm going to make the best of it no matter what happens. And of course, I want a particular outcome, but if that doesn't happen, I'm still going to learn a lot and apply that to the next attempt. Then you're being successful.
Fantastic. Wow. I can't think of a better way to end this episode. So thank you very much for coming on the podcast. And
thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. And thank you to everybody who's watching or listening. to Your Brand Amplified. I will be back again in a few days with another amazing guest. Want more? Check out amplifywithannika.com or follow me on socials at amplifywithannika.